The massive screen in Earth's Defense Command Center flickered with static before revealing a sight that humanity had both dreaded and anticipated for centuries. Aliens. Admiral James Walker stood straight, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he faced the first official contact between Earth and the Galactic Empire. The alien on screen looked almost human-like, except for their pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. They wore what was clearly a military uniform, decorated with symbols of rank that Walker didn't recognize. People of Earth, the alien spoke through their translation system. I am High Commander of the Galactic Empire's expansion fleet. Your world has been chosen to join our great empire. You have 48 hours to surrender and accept our rule. Walker didn't move. Behind him, the command center burst into whispers and hurried movements. The year was 2157, and humanity had prepared for this moment since they first looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Request time to consult with Earth's leadership, Walker replied calmly. The alien commander gave a slight nod before the screen went dark. Within hours, the underground bunker in Geneva was filled with military leaders from every major nation. The room buzzed with tension as they reviewed what they knew about the Empire's ships currently holding position just beyond Mars' orbit. Their tech is advanced, General Williams said, pointing at the scans. Energy readings are off the charts, but they're not trying to hide themselves. No stealth tech that we can see. Walker stood at the head of the table, looking at the faces around him. These men and women represented the combined military might of Earth, a planet that had never known true peace. Every person in this room had fought in one war or another. Their parents had fought wars. Their grandparents had fought wars. They think we're like the other worlds they've conquered, Walker said, his voice cutting through the chatter. Peaceful, unified, civilized. He almost smiled at that last word. The room fell silent. They all understood what he meant. Humanity had never been peaceful. They had spent their entire history fighting, killing, and then finding better ways to fight and kill. When they weren't fighting aliens or monsters, they fought each other. They had perfected the art of war through centuries of endless conflict. Show me the numbers, Walker ordered. The holographic display in the center of the table came to life, showing Earth's military strength. 5,000 orbital defense platforms, 10,000 nuclear weapons, 300 space-capable warships, 15 million soldiers trained for zero-gravity combat. And those were just the official numbers. They have no idea what they're walking into, someone muttered. Walker remembered his grandfather's stories about guerrilla warfare in the jungle, his father's tales of urban combat, his own experiences in the water wars of the 2130s. Each generation of humans had learned new ways to fight, new ways to survive, new ways to win against impossible odds. He turned to the communication officer. Send them a message. The young officer's fingers hovered over the console. What should I say, sir? Walker thought about the Empire's massive ships, their advanced weapons, their countless soldiers who had never faced an enemy that truly fought back. He thought about humanity's history, thousands of years of warfare, rebellion, resistance, and survival. Tell them this, for your own safety, turn back now. The message was sent. In the silence that followed, Walker looked at the tactical display showing the Empire's fleet. They wouldn't turn back. They couldn't understand the warning. How could they? They had never faced humans before. Begin evacuation of civilian populations to the underground shelters, he ordered. Activate all orbital defense platforms. Move our fleets into defensive positions. He paused, looking at each person in the room. And send word to all resistance cells. It's time. As the room erupted into activity, Walker stood at the window, looking up at the night sky where the Empire's ships waited. They thought they were starting a simple conquest. Instead, they were about to learn why humans had warned them to run. The first contact was over. The real lesson was about to begin. The Empire's diplomatic vessel descended through Earth's atmosphere like a silver arrow, landing at the neutral meeting ground in Switzerland. Ambassador Thomas Reed watched it touch down, his gray suit neat despite the wind from the ship's engines. Behind him stood a small team of military historians and tactical advisors. The alien diplomats who stepped out looked surprised to see such a small welcoming party. Their own group numbered 30, complete with guards and advisors. The Empire's chief negotiator, tall and blue-skinned, approached with the confidence of someone used to quick surrenders. "We have come to discuss the terms of your world's integration into the Empire," the negotiator said through their translator. Reed smiled politely. "Actually, we've come to show you something first. Please, follow me." He led them into a specially prepared building. The main room was circular, with screens covering every wall. The aliens took their seats, clearly expecting a show of Earth's wealth or resources, the usual things conquered planets tried to use as bargaining chips. "What you're about to see," Reed began, "is humanity's history. Not the whole thing. Just the parts about war." The screens came to life. Footage from World War I filled the room. Trenches, gas attacks, the first tanks rolling across no man's land. The aliens watched with growing confusion as the scenes shifted to World War II, showing massive armies clashing across continents. "These are not current events," Reed explained. "This was over 200 years ago. We were still using primitive weapons then. But notice the scale of the conflict. The strategies. The determination. The footage changed to modern warfare. Urban combat in ruined cities. Guerrilla fighters adapting to impossible situations. Special forces operating in every environment from desert to Arctic. Humans," Reed continued, "have never been united until recently. We spent thousands of years fighting each other, learning, adapting, improving our methods of warfare." The negotiator shifted uncomfortably. "This is unusual. Most species we encounter have only known peace within their recorded history." Reed nodded. "We know. That's why we're showing you this." He gestured, and new images appeared. Space combat training, zero-gravity warfare exercises, orbital defense drills. Everything we learned fighting each other, we've adapted for space. Every dirty trick, every survival strategy, every desperate last stand. We've prepared it all for the day we met a hostile alien force. "Are you threatening the Empire?" the negotiator asked, their translator catching the edge in their voice. "No," Reed said calmly. "We're warning you. Did you know we have over 300 different military special forces units on Earth? That our soldiers train in every environment from deep sea to mountain peaks? That we have weapons you haven't even imagined because you've never needed to think like we do." He pressed a button, and the screen showed Earth's current military preparations. Civilians calmly moving to underground shelters, soldiers manning defense positions with practiced efficiency, space fighters launching for patrol missions. "Your empire has conquered 1,000 worlds," Reed said. "But how many of them fought back? Really fought back? Not just their armies, their whole population. Because that's what you'll face here. Every human knows how to resist. It's in our history, our stories, our blood." The negotiator stood abruptly. "The Empire cannot be threatened into retreat. We have the most powerful fleet in the galaxy." Reed walked to the door, then turned back. "You have ships. We have 2,000 years of experience in bringing down bigger, stronger opponents. We've spent our entire history perfecting the art of war against ourselves. Imagine what we'll do to an actual enemy." As the alien delegation hurried back to their ship, Reed watched them go. He knew they wouldn't listen. The Empire was too proud, too used to easy victories. They couldn't understand what it meant to face an enemy who had never known lasting peace, who had turned warfare into an art form. His phone buzzed. A message from Admiral Walker. Did they understand? Reed typed back. "No, they still think they're the predator in this situation. Then they'll learn the hard way," came the reply. Looking up at the diplomatic vessel lifting off, Reed almost felt sorry for them. The Empire was about to learn why humanity's first message had been a warning to run. The real war hadn't even started yet. The Empire's attack fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system exactly when the 48-hour deadline expired. 500 massive warships, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built, moved toward Earth with absolute confidence. In the orbital command station, Admiral Walker watched their approach on the main screen. He hadn't slept in the past 2 days, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "They're moving in standard formation," his tactical officer reported. "No attempt at stealth or deception. They expect this to be easy." Walker nodded. The Empire's ships were arranged in perfect rows, like soldiers on a parade ground. It was beautiful, organized, and completely wrong for actual combat. They had never needed to learn real space warfare tactics. "Status of our defense grid?" Walker asked. "All orbital platforms are dark, sir. Running silent just like you ordered. Ground-based missile systems are ready. The fleet is hidden behind the moon." The Empire's ships crossed Mars' orbit. Walker remembered their warning message. "Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." They hadn't understood that humans didn't think about death the same way they did. Humans had faced death too many times to fear it anymore. "Let them get closer," Walker ordered. "Wait until they're fully committed." The minutes ticked by. On the screen, the Empire's fleet moved steadily forward, their confidence growing with each kilometer they covered without resistance. They probably thought Earth was paralyzed with fear. When the first Imperial ships reached the asteroid belt between Mars and Earth, Walker pressed a button on his command chair. "All units, execute Plan Thunder." The space around Earth erupted into action. Thousands of asteroids that looked like normal space rocks suddenly fired up engines. They were disguised human weapon platforms. The Empire's neat formation was suddenly caught in a crossfire from all directions. "First wave of missiles, launch," Walker commanded. From Earth's surface, hundreds of missiles shot upward. But these weren't normal missiles. They were based on old submarine warfare tactics. They moved in strange patterns, going silent, changing direction, using the chaos of the asteroid belt for cover. The Empire's ships started firing back, but their weapons were designed for straight-line battles in open space. They had never fought an enemy that used the environment as a weapon. "Activate the orbital defense grid," Walker ordered. 5,000 satellites that had appeared dead suddenly powered up, their weapons already locked on target. The Empire's ships found themselves surrounded by a sphere of firepower they hadn't even known existed. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "they're trying to reorganize their formation." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "Launch our fleet." From behind the moon, Earth's space warships appeared. They were smaller than the Empire's vessels, but they moved like predators, darting in and out of the asteroid field, striking from impossible angles. Human pilots, trained in atmospheric combat, used maneuvers that the Empire's ships couldn't match. The perfect formation of the Imperial fleet broke apart. Their ships started firing in all directions, but they hit more asteroids and decoys than actual targets. They had never faced an enemy that fought dirty. "Message from the Imperial flagship," the comm officer announced. "They're demanding to know what kind of warfare this is." Walker thought about all the battles in human history, the guerrilla fighters who brought down empires, the smaller forces that defeated larger ones through cunning and determination. "Send them this message," he said. "This is how humans fight. That was just our orbital defense. Leave now." On the screen, the Empire's fleet was in chaos. 30 of their ships were already destroyed. 50 more were damaged. Their neat formations had dissolved into desperate individual battles. "They're pulling back," the tactical officer reported, surprise in his voice. "The whole fleet is retreating." Walker watched as the mighty Imperial ships turned and fled, leaving their damaged vessels behind. He knew this wasn't over. The Empire would be back with a bigger fleet. But now they had learned their first lesson about fighting humans. "Send word to all commands," Walker ordered. This was just the beginning. Prepare for their real attack. In the depths of space, the Empire's retreat marked something unprecedented. Their first major defeat in 1,000 years, and it had come at the hands of a species that had tried to warn them to run. The real war was about to begin. 2 weeks after their first defeat, the Empire returned. This time, they brought 2,000 warships. Their main battle fleet. The massive vessels darkened the space between Mars and Jupiter, their weapons charged and ready. Admiral Walker stood in the Lunar Command Center, watching the approaching armada. Around him, the base buzzed with activity as soldiers and technicians prepared for the biggest battle in human history. "They've learned from last time," his tactical officer reported. "They're using scattered formations. No more easy targets." Walker nodded. The Empire wasn't stupid, just inexperienced. They had spent the last 2 weeks studying human combat tactics. But humans had spent the last 2 weeks preparing surprises. "Launch Operation Ghost," Walker ordered. Across the solar system, hundreds of small ships detached from hidden bases on Mars, on asteroids, and on Jupiter's moons. These were humanity's new stealth vessels, each carrying just 4 soldiers. The ships were painted black, with special coating that absorbed radar and light. They were invisible to normal sensors. The Empire's fleet moved forward cautiously, expecting another trap. They found nothing. No asteroid ambush, no missile swarm, no orbital defense grid. Earth looked defenseless. "They're scanning for our defense platforms," the sensor officer reported. Walker smiled. "They're scanning for the wrong things." Status of ghost teams. First wave is in position. They've attached to the enemy ships without being detected. This was something the Empire had never seen before. Human Marines in stealth suits, trained to fight in zero gravity, silently cutting their way into enemy vessels. They had practiced this for years, preparing for the day they would face alien invaders. "Begin Phase 2, Walker commanded. Inside the Empire's ships, alarms suddenly started blaring. Small teams of humans appeared in critical areas: engine rooms, weapon controls, command centers. They moved fast, using tactics perfected in centuries of close-quarters combat. "Sir, ghost teams report 40 enemy ships captured intact," the comm officer announced. "Another 60 disabled from the inside." The Empire's neat formation dissolved into chaos as ships started firing at each other, unable to tell which vessels had been compromised. Their commanders had never faced an enemy that could turn their own ships against them. "Launch the main fleet," Walker ordered. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Thunder 2. Earth's warships appeared from behind Mars and its moons, but they didn't charge forward to fight. Instead, they launched thousands of small, fast drones. Each drone carried a powerful electromagnetic pulse weapon, another trick humans had developed fighting each other. The Empire's ships found themselves surrounded by swarms of tiny targets, too small and fast to hit easily. When the EMPs went off, entire sections of their fleet went dark. "Message from their flagship," the comm officer said. They're asking how we're doing this." Walker thought about all the military innovations humans had created. Every new weapon, every new tactic had come from fighting other humans. Now those same innovations were being used against an enemy that had never needed to adapt. "Tell them this is what happens when you fight a species that has been preparing for war since they first picked up stones as weapons." On the main screen, the battle looked like a dance. Human ships moved in irregular patterns, never staying still, using maneuvers based on old aircraft dogfights. The Empire's larger ships couldn't match their speed or agility. "Sir, they're pulling back again," the tactical officer reported. "But something's different. They're leaving in small groups, not all at once." Walker understood immediately. "They're learning. Send word to all commands. The Empire is starting to adapt. Our next battle will be harder." As the Empire's fleet retreated, leaving behind their captured and disabled ships, reports came in from the ghost teams. They had downloaded huge amounts of Imperial technical data. Human engineers were already studying their technology, looking for new weaknesses. "Admiral," his second-in-command said quietly, "they know about our bases on Mars now." "And Luna?" Walker nodded. The Empire had just learned that humans weren't confined to one world. They had spread, prepared, fortified, like they always had throughout history. "Good," he said. "Let them understand what they're really fighting. This isn't a war for Earth anymore. This is humanity showing the galaxy why we warned them to run." The real test was still to come, but humanity was ready. They always had been. 1 month after pushing back the Empire's main fleet, Admiral Walker stood on the bridge of Earth's newest warship, the Defiant. Around him, crew members worked at their stations, preparing for humanity's first attack into Empire space. "All ships report ready, sir," his second-in-command reported. "The captured Imperial technology has been fully integrated into our fleet." Walker nodded. Humans had always been good at taking enemy weapons and making them better. They had learned this through thousands of years of warfare. And now they were applying those lessons to alien technology. "Show me the target," he ordered. The main screen displayed their objective. Alpha Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. The Empire had built a massive military base there, thinking it would be their staging ground for conquering Earth. "Fleet composition?" Walker asked. 50 of our new hybrid warships, each carrying improved versions of Imperial weapons. 200 stealth ships with ghost teams. 500 drone carriers, and our secret weapon. The secret weapon was something uniquely human. They had turned cargo ships into massive carriers, each one holding thousands of smaller fighting vessels. The Empire's rigid military doctrine had never considered such a conversion. "Begin Operation Lightning," Walker commanded. The human fleet jumped into the Alpha Centauri system using stolen Imperial technology. But they didn't appear where the Empire expected, in front of their defenses. Instead, the fleet scattered, emerging at different points around the system. "Imperial forces are scrambling to respond," the tactical officer reported. "They don't know which attack group to focus on." This was classic human tactics: divide and conquer. While the Empire's forces split up to chase multiple targets, the real attack was about to begin. "Launch the ghost teams," Walker ordered. From the stealth ships, hundreds of small pods shot toward the Imperial base. Inside each pod, human special forces soldiers checked their weapons. They had trained for this moment, combining old Earth combat techniques with new space warfare technology. "Ghost teams have breached the outer defenses," came the report. Moving to Phase 2. Inside the Imperial base, alarms started blaring. Human soldiers appeared in strategic locations, using tactics perfected in centuries of urban warfare. They moved through corridors like shadows, disabling systems, and creating chaos. "Now," Walker commanded, "launch the fighter swarms." The cargo carriers opened their holds. Thousands of small fighting ships poured out, each one piloted by humans trained in atmospheric combat. They flew in patterns that made no sense to Imperial gunners, loops, dives, and rolls that came from dogfighting in Earth's skies. "Sir, the Empire's commanders are requesting support from nearby systems," the comm officer reported. Walker smiled. "That's exactly what we wanted." Begin Phase 3. The hybrid warships suddenly appeared near the Imperial base's main reactor. These ships, combining human ingenuity with Imperial technology, opened fire with weapons that the Empire didn't even recognize anymore. "Base defenses are falling," the tactical officer announced. "The Empire is trying to retreat, but the ghost teams have disabled their escape ships." Walker watched as the massive Imperial base, once considered impregnable, fell to human forces in less than 6 hours. The Empire had never lost a core military installation before. They had never expected to. "Send word to Earth," Walker ordered. "Alpha Centauri is ours. Begin fortifying the system." As his crew celebrated their victory, Walker received a private message from Earth Command. The information made him pause. "Listen up," he called out. "We just got word. The Empire's nearby systems are in chaos. Their subjected species are watching what we've done. They're starting to rebel. The bridge fell silent as everyone understood what this meant. Humanity hadn't just won a battle. They had shown the galaxy that the Empire could be beaten. The Empire thought they were invincible, Walker said quietly. But they never faced an enemy who had spent their entire history learning how to defeat stronger opponents. As his fleet secured the system, Walker knew this victory would change everything. The Empire was about to learn another harsh lesson. Humans didn't just fight wars, they inspired others to fight too. The real rebellion was just beginning. 3 months after the fall of Alpha Centauri, Admiral Walker sat in a meeting room on Earth, watching reports from across Empire space. The screen showed something unprecedented. Planets rising up against Imperial rule, using tactics they had learned from watching humans fight. Another Imperial fleet destroyed in the Orion sector, his intelligence officer reported. The rock people of Centaurus used our asteroid warfare tactics. They're quick learners. Walker nodded. After centuries of oppression, the Empire's subject species had found hope in humanity's victories. But more importantly, they had found teachers. "Show me the latest numbers," he ordered. The main screen displayed a map of known space. Red dots showed systems in open rebellion. Yellow showed systems about to rebel. Green showed Imperial strongholds. The map was mostly red and yellow now. "We've sent military advisors to 20 different species," the diplomatic officer said. "The lizard people of Proxima have already mastered our guerrilla warfare techniques. The crystalline beings of Sirius are using modified versions of our EMP weapons." This was something the Empire had never expected. Humans weren't just fighting. They were teaching others how to fight. Centuries of combat experience were being shared across the galaxy. "Message from the Empire's capital world," the comm officer announced. They're demanding we stop spreading our disease of violence to peaceful species." Walker almost laughed. The Empire still didn't understand. These weren't peaceful species. They were oppressed species who had never learned how to fight back effectively. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "you need to see this." The screen showed footage from an Imperial world. The local beings, tall creatures with 4 arms, were using classic human urban combat tactics. They moved through cities like Earth's special forces, striking from shadows, disappearing before Imperial troops could respond. They learned that from watching videos of Earth's historical battles, the intelligence officer explained. "They're studying our entire military history." Walker stood up and walked to the window. Below, he could see Geneva's rebuilding efforts after the Empire's attacks. But Earth wasn't just rebuilding. It was becoming a school for the galaxy's oppressed. Update from the front lines. Another officer reported. "The Empire's trying to adapt, but they can't keep up. Their entire military structure is based on fighting enemies who don't know how to fight back. Now they're facing dozens of species using human combat tactics. The Empire's perfect order was breaking down. Their fleets, used to fighting one enemy at a time, were now facing attacks from multiple directions. Every species had learned something different from humans: space combat, stealth tactics, guerrilla warfare, psychological operations. "Sir," the diplomatic officer said, "we're getting requests from more species. They want to learn how to fight, how to resist, how to win." Walker turned back to the room. "Teach them everything. Every trick, every tactic, every lesson we learned the hard way. The Empire wanted to conquer Earth. Instead, they'd given us the chance to free the galaxy." New reports kept coming in. The winged people of Vega had adapted Earth's old air combat tactics for space warfare. The aquatic beings of Hydra were using submarine tactics against Imperial ships. Each species took human military knowledge and made it their own. "The Empire's War Council is in chaos," intelligence reported. "They've never faced anything like this. Their whole system is based on maintaining order through superior force. But now they're learning what happens when you fight humans," Walker finished. "We don't just defeat enemies. We change how war itself is fought. As he watched the reports of spreading rebellion, Walker remembered Earth's first warning to the Empire. Run. They hadn't listened. Now they were facing not just humanity, but every species that humanity had taught to fight. The Empire's perfect order was reaching its breaking point, and the galaxy was learning why humans had tried to warn them. The final battle was approaching. But this time, humanity wouldn't fight alone. 6 months after the rebellion began, Admiral Walker stood on the bridge of the Defiant, leading the combined fleet of Earth and its alien allies toward the Empire's capital system. Ships of all shapes and sizes flew together. Human vessels, crystalline ships from Sirius, living ships grown by the plant people of Vega, and many more. All fleets report ready, his tactical officer announced. The Empire's home defense fleet is moving to intercept. Through the main viewport, Walker could see the Empire's last great fleet. 5,000 warships arranged in perfect formation. Behind them hung their capital world, a planet of gleaming cities and towering spires. They had never expected war to reach this far. Open a channel to their war council, Walker ordered. The screen lit up, showing the Empire's supreme leaders. Their faces showed something new. Fear. They had finally learned what it meant to face an enemy who knew how to fight. "This is your last chance," Walker said simply. "Surrender." The Empire's leaders looked at each other. Behind them, displays showed the status of their once mighty realm. 70% of their systems were in open rebellion. Another 20% were falling. They had lost more battles in 6 months than in the previous 1,000 years. "How?" one of them asked. "How did this happen?" "We were invincible." Walker shook his head. "You weren't invincible. You just never fought anyone who knew war like we do. We tried to warn you." On the tactical display, more ships appeared. Rebel fleets from across the galaxy, each using different human combat tactics. The Empire's leaders watched as they were surrounded by the very species they had once ruled. "Look at your screens," Walker continued. "The rock people learned asteroid warfare from us. The crystal beings mastered our EMP technology. The plant people adapted our guerrilla tactics. We didn't just fight you. We taught the galaxy how to fight back." "This isn't how it was supposed to be," another Empire leader protested. "We brought order to the galaxy." "No," Walker corrected them. "You brought stagnation. You forgot that sometimes you need warriors. You forgot that peace doesn't always come through surrender." As if to prove his point, a group of rebel ships executed a perfect flanking maneuver, something they had learned from studying Earth's naval battles. "Your terms," the Empire's leader finally asked. Walker had been waiting for this moment. "Full independence for any world that wants it. Free travel between systems. And most importantly, you will remember this lesson. The next time you find a world of warriors, you will remember to run." The Empire's council chamber fell silent. Around them, their perfect order was crumbling. But something new was being born, a galaxy where species could choose their own path. "We accept," they said finally. As the surrender orders went out, Walker received messages from across the fleet. The rock people were celebrating in their way, drumming on their ships' hulls. The crystal beings were singing victory songs through space. The plant people were releasing spores of joy that turned space into a glittering cloud. "Send word to Earth," Walker ordered. "Tell them it's over. The Empire has learned its lesson." His crew cheered, but Walker stayed quiet, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Humanity had taught the galaxy more than just how to fight. They had taught them how to stand up for themselves. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're getting messages from hundreds of worlds. They're all saying the same thing." "What are they saying?" The officer smiled. "They're thanking us, not just for freeing them, but for teaching them how to stay free." Walker looked out at the combined fleet, the largest gathering of free species the galaxy had ever seen. The Empire had thought they were spreading a disease of violence. Instead, humanity had spread something else, the knowledge of how to resist tyranny. The Empire thought they were the greatest power in the galaxy, Walker said quietly. But they never understood. The greatest power isn't in conquering others. It's in teaching them to stand up for themselves. As the fleet began securing the Imperial capital, a new age was dawning. The galaxy would never be the same. And it had all started because an empire hadn't listened when humanity warned them to run.